Hi everybody, hope you're doing marvellously well. Sitting here, Jaycen Joshua, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm rather wonderful. We're in Canton House Studios.
In beautiful Studio City.
Yeah. And being LA and the height of summer, it's about 950 degrees outside.
Yeah, but you know, good air condition. You're not a real engineer unless you do a whole mix in front of a super analog console with no air conditioning. That's when you've made it. Have you ever had that experience? I know you have.
There's something about studios that they're either freezing cold or they're boiling hot. Is there ever a point in a studio? Because it's all the gear, you can never quite get that balance.
You'll never find a sweet spot.
Yep.
And Larrabee, like I remember the air conditioning going off quite a bit. And you would literally have to say to yourself, am I going to lose this mix or am I going to fight through it? And then you fight through it. You just fight through it because you're not going to lose that, buddy. No way, Jose.
Beautiful. And you've been here a year and a half now, you say?
Year and a half. Left Larrabee after close to 15 years and then went over to Sphere for 2 years. And then now we've been here in this beautiful facility for about a year and a half.
Were you building the rooms while you were still working?
Yeah, I was... When I left Larrabee, I went over to Sphere, formerly, I forgot what Linda Perry called it, Royal Tone?
Yes, Royal Tone, yeah.
And after we were there, I decided, you know what, I need to have my own place. I had a rental property that was being occupied by somebody for quite a long time and opened up. I came here, I said, you know what, I'm going to build a Soho House meets Larrabee Studios.
Nice.
And that's Canton House.
Nice. Well, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful property.
You. I've literally been in the box for my entire career, so since 2000. Well, at this level, since 2006 or 7. And about 3 years ago, we hit an epiphany. I told this story quite a bit to my friends, but it was a Her record that was up for a Oscar for "Fight for You," and we had to do it last minute, and we had close to our final update. It was right before we finalized the limiter. And when we heard the mix back, I looked at Mike and I was like, I think we got it. I think my low end that I've been hearing in my brain that I can't get anywhere else is finally here. So we high-fived each other and then continued to work on the limiter, and the rest was... I've been in the box ever since.
What year was that?
Before then, I think that was 2020?
2020, yeah.
2020.
That's just pretty recent.
Very, very recent. There's been we all do spot mixes in the box when we're at studios that don't have the right gear and stuff like that. But I would say 99% of my stuff had been inside the box until I, usually about every 4 years, I do a switcheroo and change my stuff up just so I can feel a different type of energy. It could be something super, super simple, like just changing up the drum bus. But searching for this sound that I was looking for and being able to cross genres without changing my stereo bus, because that was really hard. People don't really realize, I always have clients come in here and they want you to mix, and I always say in rap terms, just for their block or their city or their area, what they're used to. We want it, the bass rattling, and we want this, and we want it so loud that it hurts. Like a whole bunch of stuff. And then you tell them like, okay, cool. That is not a problem. But if you want to be palatable for every type of ear around the world, because every type of ear around the world is different, and because you haven't been to these places and haven't heard what their good is, because their good is different from your good. Sure. So I think I've been lucky enough, because of my upbringing, to be able to surf across all the genres, because I was able as a kid to surf across all the cultures, being that I grew up in pretty much every neighborhood you can think of. I think it's an unfair advantage.
Well, let's go back to that. Where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Baldwin Hills, but I was born specifically in a place called the Jungles, which is basically, at the time, I would say it was probably one of the worst streets. It was a street that I lived on where cops wouldn't even come in. If they came in, they would come in with the tanks and the batarangs and the stuff like that. So I was there till about 8 or 9, and family still being there. So I was that was my early upbringing on probably the most important years of my life. And then I immediately moved, which was in that area was primarily Black. There was nothing else. And then I moved to Pacoima, which is in the Valley, and that was 99.9% Hispanic. So I got that culture and that family and that type of vibe and bachata, you know, so on and so forth. But the real eye-opening experience is when because I played football, I moved to Calabasas. And this was before Calabasas was cool. This is when Calabasas, excuse my French, was labeled Cala-Blacklist. It was like 4 of us in the entire school. We all knew each other. So, but what I was introduced at Calabasas at the age of 15 was rock and roll. And I know it sounds crazy, but you have to understand, when you grow up in the inner city, you only are hearing what's being played or what's being shown to you. And no one showed me at that time, and it was the greatest, you know, explosion of music, I think. But that's when I was introduced to Guns N' Roses. First time I heard Metallica 1, I was like, no, I am half white. This is the greatest song I've ever heard in my life. It has like 7 songs in one. And then the song that took me over the top, and a lot of people don't know this, and I feel one of the greatest mixes and people of all time, Mutt Lange, but Pour Some Sugar on Me by Def Leppard blew my mind. And the rest was history. And then, you know, Nirvana came out and had all that Seattle, Pearl Jam, so on and so forth. So it was just a great time to be shown something so amazingly different to what I was used to. About as rock as I got was Beastie Boys, right, at the time. So once I was at Calabasas, the whole world opened up, and I just think that helped me surf the line and go between whether it's K-pop or pop or R&B or rap. It's been in my blood one way or another since birth.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But I understand. I came over here as a musician first, and I went to Florida and played a show, and these kids came backstage, and I was like, what do you listen to? And they all were talking about classic rock, and I was like, that was cool. And I was like, do you like Otis Redding? And they said, who's that? And I just remember thinking to myself, what planet can you be when somebody doesn't know Otis Redding? And then I realized they grew up in a certain region where the only radio they heard was classic rock.
So imagine a kid who grows up in the inner city, all they hear is, you know, rap, 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 rap. And then they get enough money because they're talented or somebody gives them money or however, they get their beat machine, they get their little platform, and they start making their records with no knowledge of the art. That's what is happening, and that's what's been scaring me the most. It's not that they're not talented. It's not that they don't have the ear. They probably have better ears. It's just that if you don't know the art, like if you don't understand that this is more than just getting stuff loud and turning knobs, it's, you know, you're painting a very intimate picture that, you know, you have to, you know, it's almost like if somebody hired Picasso and it's like, all right, paint my wife. You're like, oh, shit, I know you want it painted regular, but I'm going to put her nose like this and I'm going to put her eye like that. That beauty is definitely in the eye of the beholder. And try to explain that to that man who just wants a regular picture of his wife. Like, no, man, this is art. This is like and it is, because if you polled everyone around the world, they'd appreciate the Picasso rather than just a regular picture that, you know, somebody else has painted. So I really started probably the past 4 or 5 years saying to myself, what anyone needs any information, I'm going to give it to them.
Right. That's amazing.
Because the art's more important than I'll ever be. You know what I mean? If I can just make one kid better and he becomes the next Serban or the next Manny, I'll say to myself, well, shit, I'm like Dave Pensado now. My legacy continues. You know what I mean? And that's why, you know, obviously where I learned it from.
That's incredible. Give us a little bit of a history of how you went from there to where you are now.
Well, the history for me is relatively simple. I always tell people who ask the question, like, how did you get here? How did you make it? Mm-hmm. I understood early the that everyone needs help. Everyone needs a vessel to take them. And I don't care who you are. Every top engineer in the world, to me, has had someone or something. It could be the band that was really big. It could be a producer that you locked in with. Search for your vessels. That's one of the things that I told my students at the Mix with the Masters in France. I was like, every day, go on social media. Like, we didn't have this. Like, you don't, to find a good band, you'd have to go to all the shows and stuff like that. And, you see a good band, you'd be like, oh, that band's fucking amazing. Hey, you guys want to come in and da-da-da-da and make a record and see what it sounds like? So now they have the opportunity, like he does it all the time, just to hit, hey, I love your work, you're great. And you see they have like a couple million followers and they have no deal and you're giving them a free mix. They're going to say yes. And if you nail it out the park, now you have a vessel that you believe in. Because not everybody's signed, not everybody's, here and there. And then the other thing was mix every day. Like, do not take a day off. If you don't have work, make work. Find mixes to do because it's no different. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
This is what I say to everybody every day. People say, how do you find artists? I'm like, I used to, before the internet was like it was now, I used to go to shows. Go and go up to go, I love your band. Can I track a song? Can I mix something? I get it.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
So Dave was the other cog. So Dave was, I don't want to say the vessel because I would say the vessel was Tricky and Dream, two producers of who currently have the #1 record in the country right now. If we started in 2000, damn near 20 years later from our friendship. But they were the catapult. So we did a couple records that were really big, and it's all because of them. But you know how it goes. A&R's, who did the Justin Bieber? This kid's out of control. All right, so everybody wants Jaycen now. So that was my vessel. But the person who did the most and the reason why that I am here is Dave, because he was the first person never to tell me no when I asked him a question.
This is Dave Pensado.
This is Dave Pensado. I don't think there is a time where he could be in the middle of a mix and I was just like, hey, Dave, what the hell did you just do? And he'll spend like 4 hours teaching you to the detriment of his relationship with his client. But he would do 2-day mixes because half of the mix would be him talking to people and instruct. So I feel like I got lucky because me being so overtly like pro everybody, let's get together so we can make the best music that we possibly can. Like, I think me and Dave were the first to ever co-mix, like as a team. I always tell people, we will always be smarter than he or she. If you have more ears in the room, that doesn't mean you have to listen to them. You got the final say, but you always want to take a different perspective, especially when you're doing the volume of work that we're doing, because you can, be locked in a room all day and lose a perspective because you don't have time, like you say, to go to the clubs, to mingle, to understand what amazing is. And before COVID, that was something I did all the time. I would never miss a Friday night or a Saturday night. There's one or the other. But I have a lot of friends who are DJs, and I would just sit in the booth and catch a vibe. And it was life-changing because you can hear, like, you'd be like, all right, play my mix. Okay, and then play whatever is hot at the time. And you'll hear, like, there'll be some days like, ooh, I guess I got killed that day. So it's a learning experience. It's always constantly learning. Like I say to myself, you didn't lose the mix, Jay. You learned what they wanted, and now you can apply it to other mixes. Now, if you disagree with it, then, you don't have to apply it. But usually, pretty much every mix will have a critique. And I think this is the one business that we're like almost numb to it. Like, you send a record out and you get it back and all of a sudden there's like, hey, love it. But there's 25 things I hate, don't like about it. And what I've learned in this crazy business is that once they've told me something that they want to fix, I immediately go into defense mode. And a lot of people have to understand that before I figured this out, sometimes a panic sets in because you're like, man, I just sent the best mix ever, and they're not really understanding what I'm seeing and so on and so forth. But then I came to a place where I realized it has nothing to do with me and everything to do with them. And I'm going to try to give them what they want, but I'm not, and he'll tell you, I'll no longer ever take it personal, like even a little bit. And that's the main discussions that I have with a lot of the kids, because they're like, what do you do? I'm like, well, are you on fire right now? They're like, no. I said, you better do the mix like they said it, just like I did. You know, don't look at me now. Look at the 15 years that it took me to get there. And just like everybody else, for the first 5, 6, 7 years, whatever you want, sir. Give you the best mix you ever need. And then you start really finding your ear, and then you start getting the trust from your clients where they're like, okay, I'm going to listen to Jay even though I don't agree with him. And I've had a lot of clients that disagreed with the mix, and then the mix comes out and it's, you know, their biggest record of their career, and they're like, all right, I'm going to shut up now. But then I've had a lot that just said, I'm never working with that guy again. A lot.
Well, it's an interesting dynamic because we're also creatives like them, but we're also in the service industry.
But they don't give us that. They don't give us. If you in the creative the tree of making a record, we are in last place. I think we're even below the tracking engineer. We get it bad. The tracking engineer, like, they're not in there like, hey, my vocals don't sound great. Or, hey, I'm coming in too hot. Or, hey, the beat's not loud. No, they just care to get themselves on tape and get it over to you as quick as possible. Then they become Siskel and Ebert when it comes to you. So I think we are the step kids. We are Cinderella of the music making business, the mixers. But then when we hit the home run, we get a lot of the accolades. So it's, you know, it's a gift and a curse.
So you're not breaking out anymore to any of the...
I'm completely 100% in the box as of about 2.5 years ago. And it was an easy step because, like I said, it took a piece of software to be created to get my ear to understand, oh my God, like I cannot go this loud or this low outside the box. And like, it's fascinating to me because you have a lot of people that are in the box, and I totally understand. And the reason why I was in the box, because I was extremely comfortable outside the box. Like, that's how I learned. I learned on the board. I learned on the SSL 9000K. I had the honor of working at Larrabee for four years as a runner and an assistant. And in that period, and that's where I met Dave Pensado, but in that period, they had a locker full of mix notes of every mix ever done there by all the top guys. So one day I said to myself, I'm never going to let them throw away these notes. So I was like, can I catalog these notes for you and put them up? Because this is history. This is something that needs to be in a museum. They're like, sure. I was like, thanks. Open them notes so quick. And I promise you, everyone was using the same thing. It was pretty, you know, everybody had their little nuances, but like, you looked at the vocal chain because, you know, at Larrabee, it was like a certain type of engineer that would go in there. You know, the Dave Ways, obviously Manny's been there forever. You had the Dexter Simmons, the Kevin Davis. So those engineers would go in there and, you know, a lot of them used the same CO1B, the Avalon 2055, the DBX 900 for the DS. Like, it was the same. And then you would see the bass, and then you would see like these similarities. So I'd say to myself, well, shit, the best of the best user, let me try. It's like viewing your program, and if you endorse something and I'm like, okay, let me try it, because everything he says has been right on the money, and you can actually hear the songs. So you're like, okay, and then once you understand compression, and you know, I wish I knew then what I know now, because now with all the information and seeing that, it would be so easy to identify what exactly that compressor is doing or what exactly that EQ is doing. But then I had no clue. I just knew, okay, I'm using a CL1B compressor on my vocals because the big dogs do it. And it gave me a head start. So that's why you're trying to give a lot of these kids a head start so they don't have to make the mistakes, and they can start from here instead of starting from the bottom and trying to figure it out themselves, because they don't have to. And it just makes our art better. And I think it's the only art that people don't really collaborate on. It's really like you go to doctors, lawyers, we need a specialty. Like, no one's coming like, I need a specialist on the vocals. And it's a certain type of vocal sizzle that I'm looking for. Let me call such and such. This is never going to happen. And actually mixers get offended when they're like, hey, we love everything about your mix, but we want to, except the vocals. Do you mind if we use little Christopher's vocal chain that he has? And you look at it, it's like the REQ, and it's like, yeah, no problem, man. Dude, I don't care. But can I talk to Christopher so then maybe on the next time? Yeah. So that's the type of vibe I'm on, just collaboration.
Yes, that's really interesting. I did like a little short video that we put up the other day, and I just said, try to be a good person. And luckily, most people were like, yes, I get it. But, there's lots of very talented people, but we tend to go back and work with the people we can actually communicate with.
There's nothing better than mixing a record with someone who hears music the same way you do. Mm-hmm. It's the best experience in the world. That's why, I always find it I've had this happen a couple times. Okay, we love the mix, but here's some references that we want the mix to sound like. And they'll literally play 3 of my mixes. So then I say to myself, oh, that's super dope and super easy to achieve. But the common denominator on all 4 of these mixes is me. So maybe it's the material, a lot of people will want the Mike Will 808, but you have to give me the Mike Will 808. We can do magic over here, but I can't make something appear from nothing, to say the least.
Reminds me, I did a tracking session once with Victor and Drizzo, and the girl singer says, I need that beat from Complicated. So he plays the beat from Complicated. She goes, that's not the beat. He goes, it is. I played it.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's exactly what I'm talking about. But, like I said, we are the chosen ones that are in this room giving everything that we have. And then the first thing we hear from them is, hey, we got some notes. And I always tell my young A&Rs, I said, all you have to do is say, hey, this is the greatest mix I have ever heard in my life. But we have some changes too. Just put one little compliment in front of the 50 notes. That's all you got to do. And I'm going to attack these notes with vengeance. But if you just send notes, it's tough. It's tough.
And then, of course, if you've got multiple people in a band.
We just had that. We had it. We talked about how I've been getting more personal visits by clients, and one of the clients were a band, and they were all in here, and I can't make this up. Bass player, can you turn the bass up? Drummer, can you turn the drums up? Vocalist, I think the vocal needs to be loud. Then the keyboard player would be like, I can't hear the piano. We're just turning everything up over and over again. Yeah. So what happened was the lead singer ended up getting the control, and he was the one that, it was like, there has to be at least 2 guys. Can't have all 5, because all 5 are, and that shows you what we were just talking about. Everyone hears different.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to go to Paul Allen's studio?
No.
Oh, I missed it. You'd have done 20 shows there. You're playing under the guitar that was on fire at Woodstock.
Oh, wow.
But so he has his house in Beverly Hills that is bought for his sister, and on the bottom is a 10,000 square foot compound, and then you take a tram up to the main house. But the 10,000 one is just strictly was a studio, one of his studios, and spare no expense, had everything. And then I'll tell you another funny story. Rodney Jerkins, you can keep this on the tape. Rodney Jerkins calls me and goes, hey man, I'm in. I said, what do you mean you're in? He's like, Paul Allen, I know the head engineer. Everything. We get everything for whatever the Blue Book price is. I'm like, get out of here. He's like, yeah, I'm sending you the list. Show me what you want. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going broke. I literally damn near picked everything. Sent it over to him. He's like, go get him. 3 months goes by. Ronnie, are we gonna get the stuff? Oh man, everything you picked, I picked.
Oh.
He took my list. I was like, oh my God. Dude, they had everything from 2 Fairchilds, 2 U40s, everything was in stereo, 2 U47 tubes. Every mic you can possibly think of that was rare, every rare piece of gear. They had like 4 of the BA6As. It was just everything that you pristine, and guitars.
Probably all pretty much unused.
Yeah, because he had like 14 studios. He had that studio on the yacht. Like, yeah, it was a whole different phase. But anyway, if I'd have known you could have easily went in there, because when it was open, all you had to do was know somebody, and it was only for this world-class studio in the home. And then you're in the control room, and the whole backside, outside of the control room was glass, and you could see the city.
Right.
Like, it was just nuts, and there was no reflect. It was crazy. Anyway, when he passed away, they sold the house, and then they turned that, into another, like, home or part. Like
Right, makes sense.
I was like, damn, I wish I'd have. But it's like a $70 million house. But I think we were so, like, because we were desperate, we were freaking out, because even though it was so dope, it wasn't a mixed space. Right. Reflections everywhere. But we were so panicked because we were trying to, we were leaving Larrabee to go find a new spot, and there was no studios in the cities, to me, that was sounding like Larrabee, until I found, I don't know if you've ever went over there, but he ended up, this guy named Francesco.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were at his spot for a little bit. Immaculate, dude. When he bought it, it was already immaculate, but he was a type of audiophile that ripped up the whole floor and put like Japanese gold cable, like that kind of shit. His board was all modified. It was a great board. We actually mixed through it for like a year.
It was a year. Yeah.
Definitely heavier, way heavier than my 9K. A good board though. And then what did you have another one? 8068?
Yeah.
I know that well. I used to have an 8058, which is 24 expandable to 28. Ooh. But the 68's 32, yeah. Yeah, I had one of those for years. Loved it.
Where'd it go?
I mean, I sold it at a time when I had 3 studios, so I sold it at a time when it seemed superfluous, because I had an API room, SSL room, and Neve room. It seemed.
What was your go-to?
I mean, the SSL is what I have. I have a 4000 in my current studio, and I just I mix hybrid. So sometimes in a box entirely, but most of the time it's sort of still hybrid. The SSL becomes a template. I'm just it's set up, barely change the EQ or compression. Just
100%. I actually love that board. It was to the point when we were like, when we weren't figuring it out, we were figuring out if we were going to put a board in here. It would have definitely been a 4000. You can get 9000s for like $150 now.
Surprised it's even actually that much.
But actually, when I was looking for them, it was quite a long time, like, more than a couple years ago. So I don't know where they're probably at now. They're probably way fucking cheaper. But this was for a 80 channel. But yeah, it's just fascinating. At one time, they were $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
I look at Larrabee, because Larrabee's packed with them except for that one room. And it's like, if you do your business, like, I would call my tax guy and be like, hey, man, this shit is depreciated. Like, I need a write-off. No, seriously, you spend $1 million or something, and now it's worth 90 grand, and it's nothing wrong with it. Everything you see in here, one shape and form, is a part of the God particle. Every piece of gear on this board. No one knows that. That's for you first.
So the BCM 10.
BCM 10 with sequential 1073s.
Yeah, nice.
Then we have my favorite compressor, the one that our good friend Greg Wells made his L-Ray after, and that's the BA6A.
Beautiful. Some
of the heaviest sounding compressors that I know of. And this is my go-to. This is what Dave taught me, the Bob Powers effect, where we have the DBX 160 going into these 2 Pultecs. So I have one DBX 160, another, so I'll have a stereo pair if I need it. But basically, these were my go-to parallel EQs, especially for my low end. So my low end, if anybody asks you, is this.
And so you're boosting at 100?
Oh, no, it depends. This is, like I said, I don't know who last used it, but yes, usually it'll be 100 or 60. And then the boost would be like at 7. The attenuator, so I can change the curve, the envelope just a little bit, would be like at 2. And then the attenuator would be all the way starting at 5. So I'm just getting low end, but I'm squashing it first with the DBX 160. Then I slowly add that back into my kick drum, and it's just big and round. And that's Bob Powers.
Nice.
I don't know how Dave stole that one, but he gave it to me. And then we come over here. By far my babies, I love them so much, and they were given to me by a friend, Tricky Stewart, the vessel that I told you about. Mm-hmm. But here you go, and you got the Blue Faces.
2 Blue Faces. And then a pair of Tridents.
Yes.
Very nice.
Favorite EQ. Favorite EQ for the top end, for me.
Are you using it
musical.
On a bus, or on the master bus, or are you using it on individual tracks?
Individual tracks when I was doing it outside the box, never on the bus. I was always, even early in my career, I didn't have it on there until I changed it up, probably like 4 years into it, whenever the Isotope 4 came out. But before then, I was simple. I was a Dave Pensado clone. He never compressed on the board, ever. I did. But I did use the old school NTI. For just a little bit of that air. But other than that, and that was like one of Dave's technique, like he would tell everybody everything except that. Well, he does now though. But back then when he was in his heyday, he would never tell anybody about the NTI. He'd be like, yeah, I got that. It's like, man, he's telling them everything. And then he get to the stereo bus, he'd be like, yeah, that's it. So yeah, these are my babies. And like I said, each piece of gear gives you a certain amount of harmonics when you push it hard enough or loud enough or EQ wise or so on and so forth. So just know that every piece of gear that you see in here has some correlation with the God particle.
Now with the ATCs, did you start with ATCs?
No, I was an NS10 guy. And then when the cones, the trees, they got endangered or whatever, and there was a panic. It was like, oh my God, there's no more cones. And I don't know if they even made a comeback. However, when that happened, me and Manny were both looking at each other like, I told my friend, I'm like, I think I'm because that's all I mixed on. I never went up top. And people would come in my room and be like, yo, do you have a sub on your NS10s? I was like, no, I don't have a sub. It's just how I mix. But my trick is keeping them close together, because the closer you got them, the more low end you got.
Ah, I see.
So yeah, I was an NS10 guy, and then the cones left, and then called Dave again and said, Dave, I don't know what to do. And he said, well, Michael Brower told me about these ATCs. Why don't you give them a try? I started with the 25s. They were amazing. Tried the 45s and the 50s, didn't like them because it didn't have enough low end, even though they were a little bit louder. But then we were turned on to the JL Fathom sub that basically tunes itself, and it works perfectly.
Fantastic. And what about these big boys you got sitting in here?
Well, that's the Osbergers. That's all I know. So they were trying to switch me over to the PCMs, but it didn't have the knock nor that thwack that you only can get from a horn. So I've just been Osbergers from the day I started in the music business, and I'm probably never going to leave.
Who built these ones?
Pro Audio.
Ah, okay.
Dave Makalpour.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm saying his name right. But Pro Audio Design helped me not only with this room in its entirety, but especially these beautiful Osberg. And then I'm just so used to this. This is just the scope from the 9K that I am used to.
Feels like home.
Yeah, I guess feels these two pieces of gear, got some nostalgic. And then, we have this beautiful modified one of ones, the 905 from Grace. But we were like, you know what? Can you do this, and this? So we added that. Yeah. We added that. And it makes you feel cooler.
Warm and fuzzy. Got VU meters and an RCA on and off switch. Yeah. Gorgeous. So what kind of tracking are you doing in here?
Mostly overdubs. So sometimes bass, sometimes guitar, but 90% of the time it's vocals. We have a nice mic collection that we're accumulating. We have a C800, we have a U47 tube, we have a Telefunken 251. So we have, and we're on a mission to get the last of our puzzle, even though we probably keep going, and that will be the C12. So if you hear of anything, let us know.
Really good ones of those are rare as...
super rare.
My dad would say, rare as rocking horse crap.
I tell everyone, I say to them, I said, if you love the C800, don't try the C12 because you'll never go back.
Amazing. What are the Grammys for?
These two are sentimental because these are Latin Grammys.
Right.
And the first one is Rosalia for her album, El Maquier, for Best Engineered Album. And the second one is for Si Tangana, also from Spain, and Best Engineered Album. Both Latin Grammys.
Congrats. That's
Thanks,
amazing.
man.
I've got to ask you about the walls. Where'd you get this from?
So I got lucky. I wasn't even thinking about something like this, even though I know I wanted the studio to stand out. But I went over to a friend's studio, Skrillex. He told me that he had no idea where he got his fabric from, but all I saw was abundance of colors. So I was like, man, like every studio that I've ever went to, even redoing the one that I had at Larrabee, it was always, monochromatic, neutral colors that were just, regular. No one knows that most studios are all covered with fabric because you're hiding your acoustics behind it. You're hiding your insulation behind it. Whatever you have treated behind, you're hiding it with a beautiful piece of fabric. So I decided to try to find some art. So I put pop art, street art, fabric, and I found this in Google. So, instead of thinking about getting fabric just anywhere, you can get fabric from like the room next door that I'm about to show you. That's Jean Paul Gaultier women's clothing fabric.
Right.
And I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. I want to get it right now. So wait, hold on real quick. What do you see? Lips or a face?
I see both because when I first saw it, it looks like lips,
Yep.
and then I'm like, it could be Mick Jagger's lips, and then I look at it and go, oh, it's Mick Jagger.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty smart.
So behind this acoustic is all our traps, and behind the fabric is all our traps.
Nice.
We have a solid concrete wall behind that. It's a room built in a room, floating on the floating floor. It's the standard studio space, but literally you can crank it up as loud as you want and no sound gets through. And then the other cool thing is we have a connector. So if the music's playing and the door opens, we have a connector right here that kills and dims the music.
Which is good at some point, but I bet there's sometimes you're like, why are you coming in?
Well, they know not to come in when I'm working. So when they come in, how many times have you been working?
Yeah.
And you get the tap. You're like, you tell me they're coming in. All the time. She scares the shit out of me every day. So when I have that on, no scare. But yeah, you got the Venetian silk fabric up top.
Beautiful. That's very soft. Gorgeous.
And I could tell you a mistake that I made, but just because I wanted to make the room bigger,
Yeah.
I made those two little alcoves. But see those traps? No one knows that, but that is a bass trap. Let me turn this around. And we call it our bear trap. But because I wanted it to be an open room, and they warned me when we first started tuning the room, at 40 hertz, you felt like you were it just wouldn't leave here. So the room felt good, but it felt like the bass had nowhere to escape.
Right.
It was like, I remember one time we were listening to it and we literally all dived for the knob because it was like the bass was so overbearing. But if you turn it around, there's your trap.
Oh, wow.
And all our traps, all our acoustic is made by Jocavi. Some of the best acoustics I've ever been around, and they're really, really helpful. You send them your room, you shoot it. They send these back, so you put them up, you adjust, and that was one of the adjustments. So that's our bear trap.
With medals.
With medals, little Grammy medals.
Oh, they're the Grammy medals. Oh, there's some weight to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll go into the second room. And this is where my head engineer is, but we got to pass through the machine room first. We got our clocking system where I'm still running the original 192 HDs because I think they're the best. They're colorless to me. We have our isochrone Trinity and the 10M. And this is kind of like our lounge vocal booth area if we ever need to track some stuff in here.
Beautiful.
And this is the second room for now. We call this one the guest house because it formerly used to be the guest house. So we got the Jean Paul Gaultier fabric.
Oh, you got old Dimension
Yep.
D here.
That's actually Dave's.
Oh, wow. Does he know you got it?
Yeah, he actually asked for the NTI back. when I left, he was like, hey, can I get that NTI back? I was like, well, can I get this Dimension D?
Oh, so it was a swap out.
Yeah.
What's this?
That's
here?
the Better Maker.
Oh, the Better Maker. We haven't tried any of this stuff yet. We've got to try it.
Yeah, that's my head engineer Mike's room. So he rocks the Better Maker and these little things. And he's still in his young phase, so he's still trying analog stuff out.
Right.
And all the rooms talk to each other, so he can patch into anything over there, right through the patch bay.
Amazing.
One day we'll be like Jack Joseph Puig, and it's like, hey, we don't change the dial, we just buy another Pultec.
So thanks ever so much. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man. You're doing a lot for the community. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks. I really, this has been a lot of fun. And we've got some good ideas coming out of this.
We do. We got some things coming up. Stay tuned.
Leave any comments and questions down below. Thanks ever so much for watching. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, au revoir, adios, tutsins, goodbye.
Sayonara.